the three continents that has shown significant growth in religion and in Christianity: Latin America, Asia, and Africa. But the growth in religion in these continents and the economic growth in the continents are quite not matching. So I'm just wondering, do you have a thought on why religion is growing in Latin America and economic growth is on the increase? Why it's the same with Asia? Asia is, of course, more bludgeoning than the rest of them. And then Africa is not doing so well. Are we missing it somewhere? What are we doing wrong? And what role has religion got to play with it? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Nations, one of the cardinal reasons why nations become great is the strength of their policies. And policies are a reflection of the convictions. It is a man's conviction that is translated to the laws that govern any territory. And so when nations fail, it is not necessarily because of faith. It is because of the practice, the way and manner that faith is practiced. I give you an example. This is a phone that can be used for both good and evil. A terrorist can use this phone to destroy, for instance, and someone can use this phone to save lives. So whether through destruction or salvation, it still came from the same phone. It was just how it was used. So it's been my advocacy, and if you notice in my lecture, I said how that I think the challenge with Africa, in spite of the growing churches, that there has to be a re-examination of the content and the practice of faith. So the problem is not faith in itself, but the approach. For instance, extremisms. For instance, advocacies of hate. For instance, wrong teachings, even from the Bible, that have made irresponsible people to become, responsible people to become irresponsible. When you teach on things like grace and favor and so on and so forth, if not balanced, will put an individual to leave everything about the making of his destiny to the hands of God while not taking responsibility. So I think that those who spearhead the faith-based platforms, of course, in addition to the leadership that is largely in Africa. So it's a leadership problem at any level, whether spiritual leadership, economic leadership, political leadership. In one word, the reason for the stuntedness, in spite of spirituality, is leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Lukman, can we have your take too?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me to this forum. I just told Ruth that she's leading a revolution on campus here. Let me thank you for this very powerful speech. We will surely bring you back. That was a very interesting question that you posed to us. And I think it relates to one of the issues that the apostle mentioned, which I will repost as what we call lived religion, the praxis itself, where religion is seen, say Christianity, not just as a place where you go to worship, or even as a faith you defined, but almost like a heritage that you are born into it, and you own it, and you claim it, and you practice it. We're lacking this, and this is the root of our problem. But we have to defend the faith, to defend Christianity, Nigerian Christianity in America, from a cash and carry Christianity. So until that kinds of thing, that the prophets even talked about the Torah that is in the heart, that prepares you as a Christian, not what you just hear and you sing and you go home and you think it is finished. this is the kind of revolution that we need. And I think this is what the apostle saw. This is my first time of listening to this type of conversation. That praxis is important. And that praxis will also translate into governance. Why are the Christians taking bribes? Why are they involved in padding the budget? So that means that, Christianity has not entered into the heart where they are willing to die for what they believe in, and they want to be the only person that says, no, I am not going to take this. So we can go on and on. So governance is important, but governance that will make you say, I am a Christian. I am not going to take this bribe. I'm here to serve in the Senate as a Christian. I want the transformation of my people and the society. This is where I think we need to go. And these kinds of training and education, it's not the large cathedrals. We're competing over who builds the largest church in Nigeria when our youth have no jobs. Let me just say, so this is just...
Thank you very much, sir. Can you please help us and talk to our people who are here in the kind of ways that we need to have synergy in order to build home? Because it is important. I tell people I want to be here, but home needs me more. Please, yeah.
How do we get them to understand that it's not about building more church buildings, but more church community? So building housing for members of the church. You have people that come to church and they're facing eviction, but the church is asking, oh, bring money so that we could build a new church. So how do we get them to understand? You talked about it, but how do we actually make that happen? How do we get to see more leaders actually interested in this development?
Okay. Thank you very much. Number 3.
Hello. So my question is not actually a question, is more or less, I want your comment on it. I mean, sorry, I was seated. I mean, if religion is based on love and love for God, and Jesus has shown us the biggest love of all. He died for our sins, and that is the biggest sacrifice that anybody could show love through. Why is it difficult for we as Africans to see ourselves or to show love to each other? Why is it difficult that our politicians, if they claim they are Christians, they are those who give massively to the church? If you go on record, they are the ones who give sure of real, but they think it's all right to sell the resources of Africa for pennies over $1.
I think I'm really touched by, I'll try to just weave the 3 questions together because they're all interconnected. First, for you, may I request that if you can have access to our platform, please listen to my message, my teaching, my talk, how nations are built. This was an Independence Day discussion in Nigeria, and that came by studying America. I took a study on America to know why America is America, and I came up with about 5 to 6 factors. Number 1 being the strength and the quality of the policies. Every nation is as powerful as the policies they build and allow to find expression. And policies don't fall from heaven, if for want of word. Policies are a reflection of the understanding, the orientation, and the conviction of a people. What you believe in is what is translated into law and governs your environment. And so for the gentleman asking the question, I think the first key to creating any change is to become the example of what you want to advocate. It is stronger when you are the transformed person, so you allow people to look at your life. Your life becomes a vista. It becomes the clearest portrait of what you are selling. And so most times I see your being here And for all of you who are of the African descent, I salute your love and labor and in all that you are doing here, because this for me is a representation of your commitment to making Africa better. Talking about it, whining and complaining like many do, unfortunately, will not get the job done. Yeah, so you are taking it a step further and investing in knowledge. And so you're dealing now with minds where the limitations of culture, the limitations that have come as a result of biases, mediocrity, and all kinds of sentiments have been taken away largely, I assume. So in learning, you are able to interact with global perspectives. Now, from that standpoint, you will clearly see the flaws that have come upon the African continent. Then from your transformation, you come up with programs. A change cannot happen until your approach is systematized. You see that? You systematize your approach by building programs that reflect your approach. And I will tell you something about transformation. Transformation is one person at a time. Most people do not understand the power of one. 1 million is 1 plus 1, help me, plus 1 plus 1. Every one you take out of 1 million stops it from being 1 million. Did you get that? So if you say 1 is so insignificant, reduce 1 from 1 million, it can never be called 1 million again. What makes 1 million 1 million is the strength of many ones. You see that? So for every one person you change, every one person who your transformative programs affect, you are increasing the momentum for territorial transformation. I think most people, and especially those of us who are of the African descent, we are used to big things, big cars, big houses. So we do not respect the power of small, constructive, effective progress. You know, if your house is small, something is wrong with you. Your car is small, something is wrong with you. And so if you have a chance to transform people like the minds in this room now, you would prefer to make noise around a stadium than to constructively distill your knowledge to people who can create something that is potent. So for you, sir, my advice would be to continue what you are doing. You have to gain the advantage of relating with global minds. And this is what this platform provides. And so from the lens of those minds, you can come up with programs and probably tailor make it to suit the African continent. There are so many things we do. I'll give you an example. I hope I'm not wasting your time, am I? So we have to contend for transformation. Many people who see the need for change are not transformed enough to respond to that change. Did you get what I said? That answers the other question, my dear. And so if we are to create a debate, say, on social media, you'll be amazed at the number of unintelligent people who will be interested in responding. But it ends up as noise coming from different angles. The reason is because everything depends on transformation. You cannot change a system you are currently a victim of. You have to come out of that system mentally. You see that? Then you will now be able to create programs that gradually, it won't happen overnight, I can tell you, gradually begins to influence the system.
Look, she has had sleepless nights trying to put this together. I know no one is going to get the opportunity to give her a round of applause. So one more time for Professor Mrs. Okediji.
Sit. No, sit.
I took a deep breath because this is quite an interesting one. Religion has been a force of both good and ill in the stability of the African countries. This is the fact. In several destabilizing conflicts, conventional or low level, faith and religion have served as important undertones and sometimes as the outright basis for conflict and wars. Examples of these factors are, for a case study, the Boko Haram insurgency in northern Nigeria. this has largely been driven by extremist views. And then you may want to consider the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda that was formed in 1987 by Joseph Kony with the aim of overthrowing the Ugandan government of Yoweri Museveni and establishing a Christian theocratic state. In several other conflicts, religion has been an undertone, even if not a formal basis of conflict. In Nigeria, again, for instance, the conflict between the Fulani herdsmen, many of you have heard this or probably followed the trend through the lens of media. The conflict between the Fulani herdsmen and the farmers in the Middle Belt regions are often understood as fueled by land scarcity, grazing rights, and climatic change. But the truth is that they have a very strong religious undertone. The herdsmen are usually men of extremist views and practices, and the farmland communities they displace as part of the land grabbing program sometimes and most times are usually occupied or belong to Christian communities. This has been proven without any sense of prejudices, biases, or sentiments. In many regards, the law enforcement agencies on apprehending many of these extremist herdsmen, most of them have been found to be people who sustain extremist views, and their victims have usually been people of the Christian faith. But religion has also been a force for peace and peace building in Africa, contributing to possibilities for development. In Mozambique, for a case study, which experienced a 16-year civil war between Renamo and the Frelimo forces that left 1 million people dead and ended in 1992, Mozambique's churches played a decisive mediation role that ended the war. Interfaith religious groups have also played strong roles in peace building, in civil conflicts, in nations like Cote d'Ivoire and the Central African Republic. The church and many other religious bodies have played significant roles in the release and the freedom of many victims of kidnap and abductions, as we have in many parts of Nigeria, including the Middle Belt and so on and so forth. In fact, extending to all the African nations. I remember one time I returned from a meeting and I was met with a very serious distress call. And on responding, I was told that the abductors had taken some people that were affiliated to me. It was a group of people who had returned from a program, and all of them were abducted, and they were given 24 hours to present 50 million naira, else every one of them would be slaughtered. And because they were closely related to me, we mobilized, to inform the law enforcement agents, but clearly there seemed to be only so much they could do. And sadly, we had to get people, even of other faiths, to be able to talk perhaps with the abductors, if they could show kindness and mercy, and you would not believe the cruelty that came, cruel statements from those conversations. Sadly, one was shot on the foot. Usually, those levels of mayhem are unleashed to get you to see that they are serious. To cut the long story short, we ended up spending up to 20 million naira, even in the presence of law enforcement agents. Thankfully, they were all released. And we had the opportunity. You see, the challenge is when these people are released, they still are not fine. The trauma that they have to go through, some of them go through rape, some of them go through all kinds of traumatizing things, and it's one thing to get them free, then begin a process of constructive rehabilitation. Because some of them, even without the activity of terrorists again, they may end up dying. The trauma becomes too much, you see. And so I'm not just saying this as a lecture. These are realities that some of us have been forced to live with, especially when you become a leader within these regions. You cannot shy away from being part of the process that leads to some of these things. And so I'm just using that to point that the church has played very significant roles on this wise. Furthermore, the church has played significant roles in resolving ethnic and religious clashes in many parts of Africa. And in fact, have become partners with government and law enforcement agents in the promotion of peace, tolerance, and mutual respect. Religious bodies have actively organized peace concerts. Our organization has done that too as a case study. And so my work started largely in Zaria, for those of you who are familiar with Nigeria. And for many years, we experienced all kinds of religious crises. And so we came up with an initiative to hold periodic peace concerts. And the intent is not to advocate fanaticism. I'll be talking a bit about that before I conclude my discourse. And we successfully brought people from all religions, taking away all kinds of prejudices and promoting love. And you wouldn't believe how productive these concerts were. People came, we had all kinds of welfare activities, and people, Christians, Muslims, and any other person in between, they came, and it was very productive. I can tell you today that I have very good friends that cut across the religious divides. Very productive discussions. We may not agree on the core matters of faith, but I do not think it's been enough reason to hate, to fight, and so on and so forth. Are we together? Challenges and criticisms. Like every and any other system led and managed by humans, there will always be limitations, compromises, excesses, and ill practices. Faith, spirituality, and religion has had its share of the aforementioned challenges. This has led to criticisms from various quarters and strong reservations as to the overall relevance and practice of faith in our contemporary society today. There is still a lot of growth and improvement, truly, that needs to be brought to the current context of faith and spirituality, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. Matters of neocolonialism by the religious and political elites, advocacy of laziness and irresponsibility through wrong and extremist teachings, lack of transparency and accountability in leadership, even Christian leadership, moral failures within faith-based systems, are all issues that whether now or in the future, I presume, will have to be confronted if the relevance of faith in nation building and socio-economic development is to be preserved. My concluding thoughts. It is very clear that faith and spirituality still hold great significance in shaping the African continent as far as its future and destiny is concerned. But it is also very clear, and sadly so, still falls short of its potential. There will have to be a growing orientation that transcends faith, spirituality, and religion from a mere advocacy of fanaticism, societal transformation and nation building, to one that will, in greater measures, spearhead the campaign for moral excellence, honor to all men. We must introduce superior policies that stimulate great growth and development. That from the lens of history and from the factors that I've put before you, I think it is safe to say that faith still holds value and relevance in our contemporary society, especially sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you very much for your attention. God bless you.
Come on, ladies and gentlemen, that was Apostle Joshua Selman. Can we make that round of applause more? Thank you very much. Thank you very much.